Hello everyone, and welcome back to UCD Data Sock Speaker Series. Today we have with us Neil, who has co-founded his own company, Andrson, and mind introducing yourself, Neil?
Yeah, of course. Hi, I'm Neil Dunne. I'm the co-founder of Andrson, a music technology company based out of Dublin.
So Neil, do you want to start off maybe by telling us a little bit about Andrson?
Yeah, of course. So Andrson is a music technology company. We operate both with a platform and as an API licensing company. We specialize in bespoke audio analysis. So everything where people understand like fingerprinting technology that the likes of Shazam use, we go a hell of a lot deeper and extract tons of audio features and allow industry professionals and musicians to search by sound.
All right, that sounds really cool.
Sounds very interesting. Myself, I'm a computer science major, and I know many people who watch Data Sock Speaker Series are. So something that would be of interest to me would include like what kind of technologies do you guys use? I'm sure you use multiple, but like what's the main one that your company uses?
Yeah, so obviously we have many different processes going on because we have platform. So obviously all our cloud infrastructures we use AWS. All the server infrastructures with like Python. So Python is sort of the basis of everything that we create, especially in terms of the analysis engine. We also do a lot of big data and machine learning. So we use things like sklearn, PyTorch, TensorFlow, and Librosa. And then on the front end stuff, all the web stuff is done in .NET, but on the platforms we code currently natively, but we're moving everything over to Flutter now. So yeah, it's a bit of everything. We use MySQL for database stuff. So there's tons of technologies in there that we tap into depending on what we need and when.
So obviously you're really interested in tech and music, but we saw also that you're involved with think tank management. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that maybe?
Yeah, sure. So as a background, for me, I'm a musician first and fell into artist management. Out of that, I was working with a lot of bands and just sort of started noticing that I was more interested in the business sort of side of things. And myself and my business partner, co-founder of Andrson, Zach, we set up Think Tank in Dublin 4 years ago. So we manage artist careers. So looking after the business side of musicians for them. And it was really through that we actually came up with Andrson. So when we were looking to discover new music, we were trawling through static databases. We were trawling through blogs, Spotify playlists, going to gigs, relying on word of mouth. And there was just this, first of all, you're overwhelmed with the amount of data and the amount of results, and there's no efficient way to filter them or to search through them. But also we were just so frustrated about not being able to look for what we wanted to represent. So my business partner is American. He'd moved to Dublin and all he wanted to do was find the next Hozier. So he was typing into these like static databases, and there's a lot of these out there in the music industry that let artists to self-tag, which as you guys being data scientists, I'm sure you'll understand there's a ridiculous level of bias there, and it yields unworthy results. So Zach was looking for a Hozier, but anyone with a few brain cells decided to tag themselves as Hozier because they knew that people would be searching for that. So we were finding these like 3-piece girl pop bands and DJs and people who didn't sound anything like Hozier, tagging them saying they sounded like Hozier. And that's really the sort of the piece, the sort of switch that flicked in our heads. And we're like, surely we can automate this. Surely we can divulge through this audio data, and surely we can bring it back to what matters most in terms of search. And for us, and for pretty much anyone in the music industry, the most important thing is the music itself. Nobody, and no offense to you guys, but nobody enters the music industry to stare at sheets of data. They do it because they're passionate about music, and there's tons of data there, but it's people do it because they wake up every morning and all they want to do is listen and talk about music.
Just kind of following on from what you said there, actually, do you think like there's not really a place for solely technological driven A&R, like as in there'll always be a need for someone with the ear to sort of combine with that technological side?
Yeah, no, 100%. One of our our catchphrases is like we try and connect the human with the technology, and ultimately, certainly from our standpoint, we believe the most powerful tool in the music industry is and always will be the human ear. What we try and do is just make that decision process easier and quicker. So if they're looking for a support act for take Hozier, take Michael Kiwanuka, take Haim, they can find acts that sound similar in a geographical location. And then it's up to them, because they're the professionals, they're the ones being paid ridiculous amounts of money to make decisions. And that's what they have to do. That's how they're held accountable. But data supports. I don't believe data makes decisions. I think it supports decisions. And I think that's the sort of the line in the sand when it comes to that. I don't think there's a lot of technology out there that likes to say that it can predict a hit. I don't think that's true at all. I don't think it can be true. There are many other things, like you can see what's growing. You can predict whether it's going to do many things. But the idea that AI can plug into a load of unsigned music and say that this is going to be a hit and this is when it's going to be a hit, to me, there's just far too much subjectivity to be able to predict something as fickle as music trends.
Yeah, that's super interesting, because like as intelligent computers get and algorithms get, it's nearly impossible to do that accurately. You're right. We have actually a question from the chat there, from Sineth. He's asking, could you specify some of the top use cases of these data points that you're capturing from the data?
So if I understand this correctly, I guess he's probably wondering what data are we receiving and how do we use it?
I think that's what he's asking.
Yeah. So with that, basically, we extract hundreds of audio features. So things that we understand, like BPM, like how many beats per minute, the amount of instruments, what are the instruments. I'm not going to go too far in depth because there's like over 600 of them, and that's what makes our technology so unique. But things like that, and then certain things that human ear doesn't understand, and we then cross-reference those features that make up a song with a database of successful hits, and allow people to search by sound. So in terms of a use case from that direct data, if I'm an advertising agent and I've got a budget of €5,000 to place a song in an ad, so I'm a music supervisor, I want to sync Gimme Shelter by the Rolling Stones, but Gimme Shelter by the Rolling Stones is probably going to cost me about 300,000, not 5,000. So the issue there is, how do I get the same sounding song but for €5,000? So like an unsigned artist or an up-and-coming artist that isn't going to break my budget. So you could log on to Andrson and you could search, I want to find a song that sounds at least 60% similar to Gimme Shelter by the Rolling Stones, and you can see all the songs that match mathematically. And in terms of what's happening in the back end there, that's all those data points comparing. And we do a lot of machine learning and artificial intelligence on that to present that percentage score.
Mhm. Thank you for that. Yeah, that makes sense. Something that I came across that as I was researching Anderson was that you talk about how data is confusing the music industries are the words that you used. Do you think that this problem exists in other industries as well? Maybe I would say maybe in sports not so much because data does help sports, but I could definitely see it as a problem in other industries as well. So do you think it does exist in other industries, and how could you solve it? Is the question?
Yeah, I think the differentiator there is, yes, data helps in every industry. The reason why we say it's confusing is currently it's not that like data is wrong, because data is usually right. It's just being displayed in the wrong way. It's being utilized in the wrong way, and is being used at the wrong time. So we're trying to simplify that process by presenting the right data at the right time and utilizing the data that we have to give more accurate results. So I think that can be transferred to any industry. Yeah, sports is a really good example, where they use data. Certainly right now, they're probably using it a lot better. Music industry is accelerating, like in terms of data and AI, at a ridiculous rate at the moment. Like when we first started looking for funding 4 years ago, we've been turned away by investors because they weren't interested in music, whereas now it's a really hot topic. Sports is a great example. I'm sure there's a lot more that sports can do. I'm due to talk to a football agent because in their scouting process, again, that discovery process, they don't use a huge amount of data, or again, they're sort of using it at the wrong time. I think for monitoring data, so especially for players, like all those packs they wear, that's in a really good place. But yeah, I think discovery in general, because, and that's what Andrson does in music, but discovery in general is probably where data is confusing the most, because it's so fresh and it's so raw. So if you look at like actors trying to get in front of a production team in a movie, if there's no backlog of data, or they're not already signed to something, there's probably a lot of use cases there. And the same with sports. But I think discovery in general, because digital technology, so like streaming servers and stuff, have exploded in the last 10 years. That like pipeline to distributors and to services is now having to catch up. So I think any service that has created any industry that's created a service without first creating a pipeline to distribution and then to the service itself, I think there's going to be technological applications to fix that.
So just going back to what we were talking about earlier, how you started off in management and now what you're doing is a lot more sort of tech focused. But did you find that was a difficult transition, going from management into being a tech founder?
Yeah, absolutely. My background's engineering first, but really only on a basic level. I actually dropped out after third year to focus on Andrson. So I would definitely be a lot more technological minded than Zach, but I can't code to save my life. I'll understand the code, but I can't write it. So certainly initially I found it really difficult, because when you don't have a tech founder, or a tech founder, the starting process can be really, really slow and frustrating, because you can't just do it yourself. So you're always reliant on funding. So that certainly didn't help. In relation to sort of when we did get the funding and we could start getting going, I definitely found that my background in engineering helped, because the sort of thought processes, like maths was my thing in school and in college, and anything logical and problem solving wise is sort of where my strengths lie. So I definitely, in terms of processes and stuff like that, have found it like really exciting and well suited to my skill set. But I think their management and running a tech company are in many ways a million miles apart. I always try and find the creative sides to work in Andrson, trying to get involved as much in the like the marketing or the sales or anything customer facing, because I think that keeps you sort of like on the pulse of what's happening. But yeah, there's a steep learning curve when you don't have a proper tech background. But at the same time, now that we have that team beneath us, I definitely find that a lot more of my learnings is around leadership and managing the staff and managing our community, making sure like the employee well-being is always to the fore as well. But yeah, it's very, very different, but it's fun.
Thanks for that, Neil. So you've touched on it already, but you've clearly found your sweet spot between technology and music. You've mixed your two interests, which is something that most people struggle to do. So I know you said you're involved with music earlier, so obviously you knew that you're passionate about music, but you said you dropped out of engineering and you couldn't code or you hated coding. How did you still know that you wanted to bring the technology aspect into music? You didn't just want to be a musician. You wanted to employ technology in a way that serves the music community, because obviously you didn't like technology, well, you didn't like coding that much, but you still saw the opportunity technology has in the industry. So what would you say helped you realize that?
Yeah, it was actually sort of like the same sort of time. So I really enjoyed engineering. I think what turned me off the most was the fact that every single subject involved maths, and I was like, I think I need to be involved more in business. So when we came up with the idea for Andrson, I took some time off college, and we started doing user testing. So we built a really rough mock-up on Envision or Marvel, and we started going around to our industry contracts and demoing this really basic mock-up of a platform, and was like, if we build this, would you use it? And it was like really, really low level, probably quite biased initially, user research, but we needed to make sure that what we were going to build, people would get behind. And one of the first conversations we had was with the head of Universal Music in Ireland, and he was like, if you can build this and it works, I want it. So I think that was a big moment. And I guess the reason I decided to leave was because I knew you start realizing what your body wants to do. Like, I'd be sitting down to study engineering, but I'd be focusing on music. I'd be arranging scores of music for groups I was with. I'd be booking tours. I wouldn't be doing the work I needed to do. And when this opportunity came, it just all sort of came at the right time. And I was like, look, maybe you can actually create a career here for yourself that allows you to still fuel that sort of problem solving, engineering passion, but you get to work with music every day. And that was definitely it was sort of like it came all at the right time, and it would have been silly to turn down the opportunity.
Yeah, that's really interesting to hear. A bit like myself as well. I'm an engineering background as well, but I'm very interested in sort of the music space, especially data and music particularly. So that's really interesting to hear. I guess kind of moving out of the music for the moment. From your experience working in tech, what kind of impact do you see artificial intelligence particularly having just on the world in general in the coming years?
Is Elon Musk gonna take over? Look, I think it's always scary when you create something that can have a mind of its own. Fundamentally, I think as long as we approach things with a human first mentality, I think we're going to be okay. Like again, artificial intelligence is amazing when it's used to help humans. And I think in use cases where it can speed up processes, it can give you answers, it can allow you to search for things. Like artificial intelligence is everywhere. Artificial intelligence is fueling this live stream. Artificial intelligence is the PlayStation you play against. You know, I think people use this term artificial intelligence and they're like, oh no, it's a brain that's gonna like shoot at me. And yeah, that side of things could be really, really scary. But also the use cases on very simple things in medtech, in agri-tech can be life-changing and create new industries, jobs. So I think I can't say for sure. No one knows for sure. But I think as long as we continue to maintain a thoughtful approach to it, and that's the onus, and that is the startup founders, but also investment communities and governments to continue to regulate. I think it can be an amazing tool for all industries.
Thanks for that, Neil. Can you hear me? I think, yeah, my internet is back. So we have another question from Sainath, a follow-up question. Thanks for answering the previous question. What's next for Andrson apart from optimizing your algorithm?
Number one, optimizing the algorithm. No, we're actually in the middle of a rebuild. So we license our technology, as I was saying, to other platforms. So our analysis engine right now is in an amazing place. It's better than all industry state-of-the-art analysis algorithms. So it's very much the most accurate analysis out there. So we're focusing a lot on trying to service other elements of the music industry with that technology. So selling it to other database companies, other music management systems, streaming providers, stuff like that. For us as a company, we're rebuilding our platform at the moment. The platform that was out there was very much like version 0.5. So we are rebuilding a lot. We're actually getting like the new designs on Friday, so I can't wait. But we're building out new functionality for artists. We've got like over 8,000 musicians on the platform at the moment from all over the world. So we want to try and really foster that community and give as many opportunities to those musicians, as well as making discoverability easier, better, and faster for both artists and industry. So a lot of rebuild in that sense, and then just trying to get this everywhere. Like our goal is to make sound-driven search the norm for as many people out there as possible. With Andrson, it's very focused on musician to industry, but that doesn't mean sound-driven search has to just live in there. For example, our API is extremely malleable. So if you guys use Smool, like the largest online mobile karaoke app, if you were singing on that and you wanted to pay 99 cents at the end of that to get your Andrson analysis, we could provide that. So the applications of our technology is quite modular. So that's another sort of big focus for us over the next 6 to 12 months.
Thanks for that answer. I saw that you were the runner-up at Ireland's Best Young Entrepreneur, organized by Dublin City Council in 2019. Was that for Andrson? And if it was, can you walk us through the journey? How was it? Did you have to present it in front of a panel of judges, or was it just an application-based?
Yeah, no, it was back when you could meet up with people in person, which was nice. Yeah, no, it was great. It was They actually brought like I think there was about 30 or 40 of us. They brought us down to a hotel in Kildare, I think, and we had like a boot camp weekend. We had loads of speakers. We presented. We obviously had a lot of drinks, which was a nice nice way to blow off some steam. And then when we came back, we all pitched to a panel of judges, and yeah, it was a great experience. One I'd recommend. I'm not sure if they're running it this year, obviously with COVID and stuff. But to any new tech companies, one I'd recommend, because like just for networking, like the startup community in Dublin specifically, but even all around Ireland is like really rich, and very, very supportive. Like I remember how scared I was to get up in front of, being like, I guess 22, 23 at the time, and there being like 30-year-olds and 40-year-olds in the audience, and standing up in front of them pitching my business idea. Like it knocks socks off you. And also creates, like, I think the same year, Devon Hughes from Buy Me, who've done like incredible things over during the pandemic, was there. And yeah, it's a great opportunity to meet other people doing the same stuff. I think when you're a lot of your friends go through the traditional college route and they have their milestones, it's nice to talk to another like self-starter, because your milestones are just so different.
Definitely, yeah. It must have been a very, interesting and an experience that you learned a lot from. We have a comment from our auditor, Sam, saying, expressing how nice Rob's new hoodie is. That's our new data sock hoodie.
Amazing. Go buy one.
Maybe we should start selling them, Sam. All right, Rob, yeah, go on.
Yes, so obviously in your line of business, it's there's and in tech in general, there's sort of ever evolving changes, and it might be important to keep on top of those sort of things. So how do you go about staying up to date with sort of new technologies you see coming out?
It's I don't think there's any way to always stay on top of stuff these days. Like here we are locked up in the world, staring at a screen all day long, and you still miss stuff. And that's okay. I think learning that like missing stuff is okay, because like, again, what this pandemic has taught us is that like everything will not always be perfect. But I love Product Hunt. Product Hunt is a great. We actually just launched a Spotify plug on it like 2 weeks ago now, I think, which like analyzed your music and created a Andrson Spotify playlist for you. So if anyone wants to check out Andrson, that's the best way to check it out. It's called Rewrapped. So Product Hunt's really cool. Like Troll, it basically it launches new products every day. So I sign up to that. I sign up to a couple other just sort of newsletter bulletins that drop me what's going on in the industry. A couple of cool VCs like Hunter Walk, who is based out of the West Coast, is an absolute genius, and I subscribe to his newsletter as well, which just talks about a lot of stuff and what's going on in the industry. And then, even though everyone thought Twitter was going to die like 5 years ago, I love Twitter. I think that's where I get most of my news, and it's really, really great for the tech community. Again, really supportive, but also really engaged. People having good conversations on there. I tried Clubhouse. I hate it. If other people like it, that's cool. But yeah, not for me. But yeah, other than that, I think like there's a few great Slack communities as well. Like there's the Irish tech community and there's Scale Up Ireland, which are really good for sort of like keeping you up to date. But yeah, they're the main. Product on Twitter, and then the few sort of newsletters I subscribe to.
Perfect. Thanks for that. Just a reminder for everyone, if you want to ask a question, do so now, because I have one final question from myself, and that is, obviously you have taken a path that many people are too scared to do in terms of university, and that is drop out of engineering in third year. I have many friends in engineering, and I understand how difficult of a degree engineering is.
Do it.
So
Step out.
so that is my question. How did you know? I know you mentioned that you pitched Andrson, and there was positive feedback, but I know that many people, even if they did get that positive feedback and they were in your shoes, they would still be too afraid to drop out from engineering, especially in third year. You're very near the end.
Mm.
So uh, how did you have that final push? Who gave you that final push? Was it just a decision that you made and there's no going back, or how did it happen?
No, no, no. So I took a leave so I could go back. I'd also never recommend anyone drop out of college, especially if you're studying engineering. I think it's one of the best degrees you can do. I think it's one of the most hireable degrees, and I think it probably, as a general degree, I think it probably teaches you the most. And like if I could just hire a general person to do stuff, they'd be an engineer. I think in terms of the like taking the leap part, I was talking a lot about this recently on Twitter. Actually, there was like an 18-year-old that a friend shared, and she's like, give advice to this girl who's setting up her own company. And it's like, don't be afraid to share your idea at all, because I think everyone has this fear factor that what you've created is going to get stolen. Like we've all watched The Social Network, and we all think that we're the Olympic rowers that are going to get their ideas stolen by Mark Zuckerberg, or you're going to tell a VC and they're going to pass it off to their friend. Everyone is far too busy doing their own shit to steal your idea. Everyone has their idea. It's about like how you execute your idea that matters. So if you have it, share it. Listen to feedback. Don't be defensive if someone gives you feedback. Also be wary of how much feedback you get, because everyone's going to give you their opinion, and you have to stay true to like what you believe is the right way to build what you want to build. But yeah, I think the biggest push is getting out there and starting telling people about what you want to build. Because by and large, rather than people stealing your idea, they'll make introductions. They're like, oh, someone tried to do this before, or I know someone who works in a similar industry, you should talk to them. And that's really what fuels things, is that like human contact. Because if you're doing this for the first time, it can be really scary, and you're scared about setting up like a limited business and what that means. Like ask someone. The community is very supportive, and most of the things you're scared about, there's no need. But as soon as you understand that, I think that's the biggest failing of like business degrees. They never teach you the things that like you actually have to do to set up a business. So yeah, talk to people, get feedback, don't be precious. And then the final thing is like get your product out there. We got it out as soon as we could. It took a long time. We thought it was perfect, and it wasn't. And I remember time and time again, people were like, get it out, get it out, get it out. Because as soon as you get it out, you get live user feedback. And that's the first time you get properly unbiased feedback. We had like a guy randomly stumble across our app from like Nebraska and told us he hated it, but he told us why. And that was like the best feedback we ever got. And we use that to fuel the next version of the platform. Whereas there's always the case that your mom and your family and your dad are always going to be like, that's great. Yeah.
Exactly. Thanks for that, Neil. We have actually another question from Sam, who is asking, how did you meet your co-founder, and how tough was it to build your initial team?
So co-founder met in college, a music group, and we sang together, and then set up the management, and then set up Andrson. The initial team is tough, because it's funding reliant. We the hardest challenge was getting our head of audio. So Corhook has like a PhD in complex musicology and computer generative music. He's worked for Microsoft. He is a genius and is really the one who I learn most from. Certainly in relation to the development stuff. We also have Nikhil, who is a whiz on machine learning and stuff. His master's is blew us away when we interviewed him. I think they were the components that took the longest because they were so core to what we were building. We've been incredibly fortunate with our marketing director, Cara, who I think was the first person that we interviewed that really understood what we were trying to do, but came in with such a clinical eye to our product and what we built. I remember on day one, what she started was the day we launched our beta, and she was like, "Guys, there's so much work to do." So it's really hard to find. I think we've been really fortunate, to be honest, because everyone we've hired has been really, really valuable and added a lot to our product in so many different ways. And if someone asks me like, how do you find those people? I have no idea. I think we've just been lucky. So yeah, it was really tough. But we've been fortunate.
Thanks for that, Neil. And we actually have another question in the chat. They're all coming in now. So, what was your sales and marketing strategy, and did you have to change it during COVID?
Yeah, we did. We made the first thing we had to pivot to is we made the platform free for 2020. Music industry got hit incredibly hard. Artists have not been able to make any sort of living. The stats are stacked up against them as it stands with streaming services. So we didn't want them to have to pay a penny. That was the largest thing. We also then decided to give back to the community. So we ran a song contest for all users that was also free to enter, where the grand prize was €10,000, as well as we gave full fulfillment packages and studio time and photography and stuff like that. So that finished at the end of last year, and we gave away the prize last week, or about a week ago, to an artist called Snake Eats Boy from the UK. So yeah, it's been tough, but also at the same time, it's been fortunate at the same time, because like calls with labels, like we've had calls with people we would never have gotten in front of, or would have been a lot harder to get in front of had it not been for the fact that we can just be like, hey, and you can just Zoom. So having a conversation with someone in Australia would usually mean you have to get on a flight to Australia, and a startup can't afford to get on a flight to Australia. The same with the States, whereas now it's just so normal to just book someone's time, even if it's out of hours. So there's been upsides to it as well.
Definitely. Yeah, I agree. Actually, COVID did as much harm it did to all of our lives. It also did have a bright side, I guess you could say. And I think on that note, if there's no further questions in the chat, it's time to end. So thank you very much, Neil, for joining us this evening. And yeah, we'll see everyone next.
Thanks, Neil. That was really, really interesting.
No.
I think comments just cut off there.
Yeah, I wasn't sure.
But yeah, to everyone who's watching, I guess, thanks, and we'll see you again next week. Cheers, guys.
Nice one. Thanks, Mel, Rob. Bye, Ahmed.
Thanks, Mel.